Good afternoon. Yeah, we need to get our boxes back. We sent them out months ago and they haven't come back. No, as we said, things have moved on quite a long way since then. So I'm the managing director of PowerMeeter. It's a video screening tool. I'm going to be joined today by an old colleague of mine, Hassan Khan, who runs a digital communications agency, has been doing for about the last 10 years. So he's been dealing with a lot of global businesses around their video strategy, generally reaching out to customers rather than candidates. And when I was talking to him about coming here today, we both agreed he could probably add a very different perspective from a wider angle around video, which then, fingers crossed, I can come in and pull the strands in and start talking a little bit more about how it might be able to help you with some recruitment. So this is Hassan.
Thank you, Ian. Afternoon, everyone. As per Ian's introduction, I do a number of things. I work in video communications, work with some quite large global brands, helping them to just communicate more visually. And recently, I got involved with the London School of Marketing, doing some digital media stuff. Enough about me. Why are we here today? Something quite profound has happened in the world over the last few years, and I could sort of throw data at you and various things. I'm going to share a couple of images that I use in my lecturing. You might have seen this. It's quite familiar on the conference circuit. This is an image of the inauguration of the Pope in 2005, Ratzinger. And some of you may remember he resigned early, and in 2013, the current Pope, Pope Francis, was appointed. This is the same inauguration in 2013. Something really profound has happened in those 8 years. Within our living memory, we can all relate to this, we can all experience it, we all know what I'm talking about here. And no one is immune to this. No brand, no touch point, no department of your organization is immune to this change. Another way of looking at this, what I like to call the New World Order, this is happening right now as we speak. We're all part of this world. And it's raising some big questions. And when Paul talked about reinventing a job description and changing a job description, brands are having to ask themselves, why do we exist? What's our purpose? What do we mean to our audiences? And that can be your customers, your consumers, your candidates. How do they relate to us? What's the experience they're going to have with us? And there's been a fundamental shift in that balance of power between brands and its audiences as a result of this. The power fundamentally lies in your audiences now, whoever they are, your customers, your consumers, or your candidates. But in asking any brand to try and find a way to navigate the way throughout all of this and develop a strategy for each individual strand or avenue, it's probably impossible. But there is one currency, one commodity you can trade in, which helps you cut through all of this, helps you become relevant in all of this, at all of your different touch points. And that commodity is video, and that's the world that I live in. Because brands mean different things now. We have different touch points. We have experiences now. Your audience are asking you, are you an enabler for me? Do you add value to my life? Can you inspire me in any way? It's not just about what's your share price, what's your market revenue, and what's your sale, where you're progressing. There's bigger questions being asked. And for me, when we talk about recruitment, well, where does marketing finish and recruitment start? Are they disjointed or are they fundamentally intertwined? Because they are both touch points and both have meaning. So video is that one, again, the term I like to use is that one commodity, the one currency which is accepted in this new world order, which doesn't guarantee anything, but certainly makes you relevant, certainly helps you engage. And once you engage, you can start doing other things like building relationships and developing trust with your audiences. And most of us in this room, most organizations, are trying to do something that resonates with this, on these different platforms, and doing something called social, doing something called content, acquisition, leads, SEO. You can't physically develop a strategy for each individual strand. But in terms of getting the biggest return on your investment, video is the language which people are using, communicating in, living in, sharing in, digesting in. Are you speaking that same language? On the BBC Today, I refer you to it. If you go to the BBC Today, there's a piece about L'Oreal in China and how they're now recruiting. And in China, they have 7 million graduates every year. And L'Oreal was going to the top 20 universities only. but they realised they were missing out on a massive chunk of the graduate market. So what they developed was this platform where candidates now get 3 questions on, it's not a video screening tool, but 3 questions on their mobile, where they answer quite sophisticated questions, and there's an entire algorithm behind it which determines the type of personality and character this person is. And they're not looking at a CV anymore. They're looking at the 3 questions. Because a CV on its own doesn't really tell you much about a person. Does it give you the entirety of a person anymore? We have a big footprint. We live in different ways now. So, on a final note, I'm a video person entirely. I'm not the gospel, but I just believe in it passionately. And I'm going to hand over now to Iain, who's going to sort of funnel it down into how that can help you in your recruitment processes. So, thank you.
Yeah, we were speaking about it. He said, "You're not having my Pope slide, it's too good." So I had to get him involved to do it himself. I think there's some really interesting things that Hass raises about how compelling video is, how engaging it is. And I think, you're in this room, Hass has talked a lot about touch points and about consumers. I think, the reality is your consumer is the candidate, and you've got a relatively finite number of touch points in the recruitment process. Of course, your employer brand is important in terms of generating and stimulating interest generally, but in reality, it's once someone's into your specific pipeline around a particular job, that's the really good moment to try and get a particular touch point in with them. So I really think that there's an opportunity. Clearly, we're video screening, and I think the screening stage of the recruitment process is absolutely perfect for reaching out through video and starting to engage. And I just want to take almost a step back and just talk about why people get involved in video screening to start with, before rolling through to why I think it's such a good stage to consider, the Pope slide. How can you engage with that generation, that group of people when you're recruiting? So, traditionally, these somewhere up here is a pain point you're familiar with, and traditionally when our phone rings or we knock on someone's door, at the point at which they're starting to consider trying something different, it's one of these 4 areas that's causing them the most pain. I love the guy on the top right. When our designer found that, that's brilliant, that's perfect. So, the high volume is quite often what drives people to start, but there are all sorts of reasons why people realise they've got a bottleneck and their recruitment process is slowing down. They need to change something. So I want to be quite clear about what I see as the difference between video interviewing and video screening. So video interviewing for me would be Skype, Google Hangouts, those kinds of things where you have a full, got a kind of not unstructured, but far less structured conversation that can follow the flow of the dialogue, and you can dig in to particular questions and really, get down underneath the skin of it. Almost the sort of second interview, the final interview. But sometimes that's done by video because of differences in terms of scheduling and what have you. I think the really key thing around that is you don't have any opportunity really to reinforce your brand. You'll have Skype or something like that as the brand they're interacting with. And obviously by doing it through someone like ourselves, your brand is at the forefront, and we'll see a bit of that later. So what do I mean when I'm talking about video screening? I'm really talking about the first 3 or 4 questions, the first 3 or 4 minutes of an interview. And effectively, organisations like ourselves, and there are others around, take that first 4 or 5 minutes and detach it from the process and do that through kind of one-way video. So you set the questions, the candidate answers the questions in their own time, sends them back, and the recruiter gets to watch them at a time that suits them. What this allows you to do is make sure every candidate is asked exactly the same set of questions, so that it's much easier for you in that very early stage to be able to compare and contrast who is showing the signs of already being the kind of candidate you want through, and perhaps, and some recruiters have pointed out this is as much as interest as who does go through, perhaps who doesn't make the grade at a very early stage, so they can be manoeuvred out of the process. So, wrong way. So, where does video screening fit in? Most commonly, most popularly, people start by inserting the video kind of at the end of the CV stage. The CV gives you people's skills and experience. The video gets inserted to have a quick check of someone's cultural fit. How do they present themselves? How do they articulate themselves? Do they engage well with the questions that you're asking? And do they give some kind of reinforcement of the skills and experience they showed on their CV? That's probably enough in 3 or 4 minutes to work out whether this person is going to be valuable to the remainder of your process. Then you get them in, or you speak to them for the interview, and away you go. You don't need me to tell you what happens thereafter. You do it every day. That's where most people start with video screening. This is where quite a lot of people get to relatively quickly, is realising, actually, if we can screen the candidates in who absolutely tick the boxes for us, then maybe we can take those straight through to a second interview where we might be able to spend a bit more time with these candidates and doing sort of high value work with the good candidates, because actually we've got the candidates who were never going to make the grade out of the process quicker, leaner and cleaner early on in the process. The final way, and I will admit this is mainly in areas where people have extreme high volume. Some businesses are using it at the application stage. So you send the advert out, you get the CV in, you send the interview at that stage. You might even set numeracy or literacy tests at that stage to just literally, this is where people have massive problems with the volume, literally anyone who isn't able to kind of complete all 4 will not make it through to the second stage. And very commonly this second stage might be an assessment centre. It's those kinds of roles that we're talking about. But I think whichever one of the kind of 3 ways we look at it, that sort of straightforward, losing the first interview or doing this, I think the key is that at this screening stage, this is the first time that you have moved beyond just the applicants, and you've got a group of people who you are now already starting to consider potentially as being your next hires. And that to me strikes me as the perfect time, if we buy the idea of video being engaging, being able to demonstrate your brand, it strikes me as the absolutely perfect time to be reaching out with something that is warm and engaging and starting to show them a little bit about what they can expect from you. And that's why I think using the video at this stage, now that video screening exists and the capability is there to add the video in, I really think is something that could be quite powerful. It wouldn't be right of me to stand in front of all of you as recruiters and not, whilst talking about how your video could interact, not point out that you can also save an enormous amount of time through using the video. So this is a mock-up of what your diary might look like in terms of trying to screen somebody, and your diary's peppered with successful and unsuccessful conversations with people creeping around the fire escape at work at lunchtime, trying to get 5 minutes in before their boss notices they've drifted away from their desk. All those kind of challenges that you face with what is effectively quite low value work. You want to be spending your time further down the chain speaking to people who have actually got a hope in hell's chance of working for your business. So this is all not good use of time. Once you're engaging in video screening, it's very simple. You invite anyone who's applied through the same portal. Everyone gets exactly the same experience, as we've said. This is where you'd insert your video and say, welcome, great, this is the process, let's enjoy ourselves. And you can then leave that, because over the course of the next 3, 4, 5 days, the candidates go away and they film and they come back to you. It's only when the deadline hits that you need to get involved again. And we've used it ourselves, of course, we would, for recruiting. And I saw 15 candidates in an hour, and at the end of the hour, I was able to book 4 people in to come in the next week, and we hired. So that time saving, it wouldn't be right of me to stand up here and not reinforce to recruiters. That is also a massive benefit of getting engaged with video screening. But winding back to the video itself, just looking at people like yourself. So obviously I'm walking you through it theoretically. This is one of our major customers. Just reiterating, you get to know people better. It saves you from spending time with people who wouldn't have made the cut, and you can cut down on all of that process. I think the one thing that people tend to be slightly reluctant of is, so what is my candidate going to think of this? And clearly, one of the main topics of today is around candidate experience. I think, having shown you the first video, I think that would be a great candidate experience. If I was young enough to have, and smart enough to have been on their scheme, I'd have thought that was a great way of interacting with me. We ask every candidate at the end of using our process, what did you think of being part of it? I admit there is survivor bias in that 93%. It's not a Mori poll by any stretch of the imagination, but for the people who are getting through the system, they're not complaining about it. They're finding it very engaging. In fact, I've heard more often of candidates saying they wish there was some sort of reach out to them, and quite often they hear nothing, and that's what really frustrates them. Somebody getting in touch and giving them a chance to showcase themselves. What's not to like about that in the climate we've had in recent years anyway. So, more about the candidates and the candidate experience. I think this is great. We only did this about 10 days ago. We wanted to look at the times of the day that candidates film their video. And interesting, we did graduates and non-graduates, because obviously we put up a graduate thing earlier. More than half record their video not during your core office hours. So at the moment, we saw the peppering diary and you chasing people around. Part of that is because these people are working or studying or sleeping or whatever the graduates are doing at different times of the day. They do have a different pattern, by the way. They're later in the morning and they start recording. But anyway, more than half are doing this outside of office hours. So in terms of the candidate experience, you are giving them more chance to interact with you at a time that suits them and their schedules, which again, I think in terms of the candidate experience, can only be a good thing. Candidate experience, right, so all the way through the process, and we've used Virgin Trains for the example here, your brand is front and centre. PowerMeeter doesn't matter at all. It is about your brand and your interaction. So from the first email they receive, it's fully branded. They can either practice or start, it's up to them. Again, we want them to feel comfortable. Once they're into the screen itself, we take it on ourselves to give them a walk around the front screen, because we don't want them to feel like they're just lurched into it. But again, everything about it gives them the impression that they are in your environment and dealing with you directly. And then when they come to do their video, all the questions and information that they need to support them giving a good quality answer are there, because we don't want people to feel like you're setting them up to fail. We want people to feel like you're absolutely welcoming them in to be a success. So how many seconds have I got? How many questions am I going to be asked? All of that is included for them. I just wanted to include one more video. So Kathy from V Inspired is here with me today. So she's going to be playing a part in the round table later on this afternoon, where hopefully some of you might stop by and have a chat. Kathy is the person who bought our product towards the end of last year. This isn't Kathy. This is one of Kathy's recruiters. This was filmed for a graduate audience, and they very much were looking to try and reach out to that audience, not in a glossy kind of, what we saw earlier way. This is very much almost user generated. It's one of the people on Kathy's team literally looking down the camera and saying to a group of candidates, here are some tips for you. Don't have the window behind you because we won't be able to see your face. Turn it round, think about what's behind you. Now, you're going to get asked 3 questions, and when you do, take a deep breath. Think about exactly what you're going to say, and then say it with confidence. And all that kind of, there she goes, all that kind of useful, helpful, engaging information can be done very, very easily. The reason I include this is, the Simmons and Simmons video I think is fantastic, but you may well be sitting there thinking, okay, I get all the other points you make, but we just don't have the time and the resources to go away and do that and get 3 people to stand up and have the wind blowing through their hair and delivering that kind of thing. You don't need to. You just need to look down the camera like you're going to ask the candidate to and speak to them and tell them what's going to be expected of them. And again, in terms of reaching out and engagement, it's almost better because it's so authentic. So you don't need to have set aside lots of time and money to do this. You can sit there and do it today. 2 more things. We are increasingly thinking about the candidate experience. We've done a lot of work to try and make sure that your experience and your ability to move the candidates around and interact with them is fine. Our next step of development is around the candidate experience and trying to almost give the candidate a portal that they come into, and all of the information is there ready for them. So your welcome video would be in the middle of it. They can see who the recruiter is that they're effectively talking to, and really try and wrap them up in that kind of embrace of your brands so that they feel like they've got a real interaction going on. And given that word clouds are all the rage, as I said, at the end of our interview, we do a survey. There's one where we ask, just you choose the word you think best describes the experience you've just had. These are the words we get. Scary is up there, and nervous. So we haven't just handpicked all the good ones, but overwhelmingly, these are the kinds of words that I think you would want people using around an interaction with your brand at that key stage when they're just starting to really engage with you and potentially be your next employees. My thanks to Hass for his setup and talk around video. Thank you very much. I look forward to hopefully speaking to you some of you this afternoon. Thank you.